Good evening, Stephen.
Hey, what's up, Minhua?
What's up? Everything is good here. I know you've
Yeah,
been a hero and going into work because you are serving a very special, not very special, you're serving people in need. I've been working from home, so I'm
hmm
less polished from last time we saw each other.
No, it's all good. Yeah, I'm still going into the office. Our business really just never stops. We do, a lot of primarily affordable housing, low-income housing, homeless housing. So I think it's essential.
Mhm.
And with that comes a lot of, a lot of twists and turns and surprises every day. So every day is an adventure. So yeah.
Mm. So I know you and I talked about eviction moratoria. Um,
Yeah.
I actually have the case coming up for my own rental property, and my own rental property is also in Long Beach. My tenant actually requested um, partial rent suspension. Uh,
hmm
in our case, for this particular month for April. So
hmm
uh, what I did is I contacted mayor's office and to see if there are specific documents from the city of Long Beach we need to follow. I
hmm
also contacted legal department of California Association of Realtors. So
Yeah.
both departments got back to me right away, and I got back from the car attorney, and I also got back from mayor's office in the email and on the phone. So they are very responsive if any tenant as well as rental property owners have questions.
hmm
What I've been advised is to document for your for rental property owners to document for yourself what is owed, what is the payment schedule, and I think the most important message I'm just going to read directly from the attorney is that um, so the attorney mentioned the landlord's acceptance of anything less than the full amount of rent is not a waiver of all rent that is
hmm
due, but only a postponement. Um, and the mayor's office also want to emphasize some of the rental property owners might choose to serve the notice to pay.
hmm
So the mayor's office advised when you serve the notice to pay,
hmm
also include information about the city's eviction moratorium or the city's emergency ordinance.
mm
So the tenants are aware of their rights as well. So for both, and both the car attorney and mayor's office recommend the property owners to also collect documentation from the tenants to prove they do have hardship due to COVID-19.
Yeah.
So this is the gist of what I got, and what I did is really just my tenant and I documented uh, the partial payment acceptance and what is the payment schedule for the other part of the rent.
Got it. So, and what kind of industry is your tenant in that was affected by the COVID-19?
Um, that is such an excellent question. So I own a 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom property. So
hmm
typically, um, in that kind of property, you would have a family. I don't think any single person would rent a 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, right?
hmm
Or you might have several individuals. So
hmm
in their case, is some of the family members stopped working, and of course they have increased the childcare cost. So all these costs actually can be reasons for suspension of rent payment at this moment. So it's
hmm
not just, oh, I have to stay home because my employers closed their shop. It could also be I have to go to work, but because my kid cannot go to school, their additional childcare cost, which uh, can be a large sum if you can
Mm-hmm.
imagine if you have to keep a kid at home for a month. For a lot of
Yeah.
people, it's close to that point now. Or increase the medical cost if you have to care for a person who's affected by not just this disease, because some of us cannot use the in-person medical service anymore. So you have to stay home and being cared by your family members if you're sick, not necessarily sick with COVID-19. So all these costs can be reasons that they delay the payment. For my tenant, is really because they cannot go to work anymore, and they are hourly paid employees, so
Mm-hmm.
they don't have their regular flow of income. Yes, they do. They will receive um, employment insurance, I imagine, and the relief package, $1,200 check. So that's why they paid part of the rent. You can
Mm-hmm.
imagine they also have to use that money to cover food, to cover other living costs, and potentially other increased cost.
Yeah. I mean, for our tenants, for the most part, because they're primarily on some sort of housing subsidy anyway, what's happened is for the ones who said that they can't pay April, a lot of the agencies that subsidize a portion of their rent are picking up 100% of their rental cost for the next 2 months at least.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean it's well, that's great, but I think I think, when I think about folks who like yourself or other landlords who don't have tenants who are getting some sort of financial backing from the government already, I guess the biggest fear would be is what happens when this is over
Mm-hmm.
and they're supposed to pay not only the month that they're in, but everything that they've deferred. And
Mm-hmm.
what happens when that doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
when they're not able to make that, right? So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is a very legitimate concern, and especially this year, starting from January 1st, the Assembly bill takes effect to basically give tenants more protections. So in this case, the eviction moratorium ends at this moment, May the 31st. So after May the
mhm,
31st, so just for April and for May, uh, technically the landlord can serve notice to pay.
mhm,
Then it's notice if they don't pay or quit, which is
mhm,
to leave the premise of the property. That's the notice eviction kicks in. Now we do usually collect the deposit, and also on our insurance policy, you might be able to fight some coverage. So typically people collect the a deposit for 1 month or sometimes 2 months
mhm,
worth of rent. But this year's, I think the Assembly bill actually prevent people to collect 2 months worth of rent as deposit for non-furnished unit. This is actually for tenants' rights. So if you have let me just say, Beverly Hill landlord, and ask you to, your rent possibly is already 3,000 a month, and
mhm,
when you move in, they ask you to give them a 6,000 deposit for a non-furnished unit. That's actually is not allowed.
mhm.
Yeah, so
Um,
if it's just within these 2 months, you are somewhat covered um, for the most part of it if you don't receive any government subsidy as landlord.
mhm.
Um, but if it's beyond these 2 months, a lot of us are not necessarily covered by
Oh
any
yeah,
means.
it's pretty terrifying because what's going to happen is, and this could not have happened in the worst year. 2020 already started out not in the favor of the landlord at all here in
Mm-hmm.
California.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now this happens. So now you have a whole bunch of people who are going to defer their rent payment,
Mm-hmm.
and when the majority of them can't pay whatever is owed after the 60 days or 90 days or however long it goes on for, um, then to collect on that or even to evict anybody, it's going to now the tenants actually have the right to a jury trial
Mm-hmm.
for an eviction. So not without the COVID virus and all of this, that was tough enough.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when the courts are completely jam packed with evictions,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have a whole bunch of landlords who are stuck, um, footing the bill for properties where people are living for free, and then
Mm-hmm.
my head starts spinning when I just start thinking of the domino effect of everything that's going to happen, and
Mm-hmm.
then what that does to the economy.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty scary times actually.
Yes.
This is not just a 2-month thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna see this into 2022 probably. The
Mm-hmm.
ramifications of this whole thing. It's not anywhere. The day that this all started, we immediately started getting phone calls. Oh, I can't pay my rent.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that it's not a get out of jail free ticket, and it's excusing the rent. But a lot of people don't understand that. They just see a freebie,
Yeah.
and so they don't fully understand what their responsibilities are.
Yes. I think, of course, for property owners, you also have your responsibility to screen your tenants and also work with your tenants. So I
Yeah.
think it's for some people who are thinking this is a freebie, as I just read to you, this is absolutely not a
Mm-mm,
waiver
yeah.
for payment. So unless that's the agreement between the landlord and the tenants. So it's very important to explain to the tenant. So if you don't pay this month, and if we set up the schedule, what
hmm
your future month's payments will look like. I know notice to eviction then eviction is a little bit more complicated than just notice to pay or quit.
hmm
But a lot of people, a lot of honest people, they actually will follow the rules. So when they do know that they will not be able to pay, they actually will opt to find a place they can afford or move to somewhere else. But also there are people who possibly can choose to squat in your place. Then you have to not you, but landlord like us have to invoke more complicated process. That's just the risk all the property owners or rental property owners are taking. But I know your organization not only helping people who have housing needs, but
hmm
also actually will benefit landlords. Can you tell us a little bit more how organizations like yours can help both and create win-win solutions?
Yeah. I think for our organization, for our company, and the type of real estate that we do, which is affordable housing and or participating in subsidy programs, especially here in LA County, by having those relationships with those entities, um, we're able to problem solve a little bit more creatively than if you're dealing with your average tenant who isn't who's just a normal tenant that is not receiving any kind of assistance from the government. Because like in our situation, we've had people who they work with their organization, they have a social worker, they let the worker know the hardship that they're going through, and then those organizations are stepping in, actually covering the rent on their behalf.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much how it actually is throughout the rest of the year. But now that we're in this situation, nobody's really having to defer, because their agency is stepping in for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a couple people who said that they're gonna give a 30-day notice and they have to move somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so that's why our particular area of real estate is a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
I think, more beneficial because of the backing that we already have built into the
Mm-hmm.
agreements.
Yeah, and I think a lot of individual rental property owners sometimes has questions about getting a tenant who
Mm-hmm.
does receive uh, government subsidy. So what
Mm-hmm.
you just shared actually give people some assurance. People who receiving government subsidy might actually give another layer of protection to
Yeah.
rental
Oh
property
yeah.
owners.
Yeah.
And this is actually from Mayor's Office for Long Beach.
Mm-hmm.
So all the organization that pays housing subsidies either to individuals who receive the subsidy directly or to organizations like you receiving subsidies actually cannot stop paying the subsidies regardless what that person receiving the subsidies use that money to do. So for example, that person might use that money to cover part of the increase the childcare costs, they can still do that. So if I receive $1,000, right,
Mm-hmm.
from any nonprofit organization or from government subsidy, I will still receive that $1,000. And in addition, I potentially can receive unemployment insurance, and I will receive the relief package, the check, which is part of the relief package.
Yeah.
So I can see how this can benefit the tenant and the landlord at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. I would highly suggest folks to property owners to participate in these programs. I think it just takes a little bit of knowledge and education on how the programs operate, because it can be beneficial and even profitable to work with these programs. I think the programs just tend to get, there's a stigma attached to them. So a lot of landlords don't want to even attempt it. But by doing it, if it's done correctly, it absolutely is beneficial, because regardless of who the tenant is, um, problems can come about with anybody, and people can end up in any kind of hardship. So
Mm-hmm.
having that extra level of assurance, provided you've established a good relationship with the agency, can be highly beneficial to landlords.
Excellent. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for sharing, Stephen, and thank you
of
for
course.
doing this important work.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity to share that, and I can't wait to have you back on my show, and then we'll talk some more about subsidies, and and on the next episode we'll expand a little bit more on that.
Yeah, definitely. And I really look forward to learning more about it. So
Yeah,
enjoy the rest of your day, Stephen.
thank you.
Bye.
All right, take care.